when there's an injustice, whether it's against you or someone you love or someone you believe in, stand up. Don't sit down. Don't sit down on them, because they need you.
Welcome to Popcorn Planet. We are live, day 20 of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial just finished. And man, that was an interesting one. We had 3 witnesses of Amber take the stand, and they've now whittled down what they had was 8 hours left. Guys, you got to remember, Judge Penny said, when you're done on the clock, you're done. She will shut you up. She will shut the clock off. The mics are muted. It's over. They now have 4 hours left. So they used a ton of time today with these 3 experts, and I'm a little shocked that they spent so much time on these people. I mean, good. Use up the clock. Let Johnny have way more clock as they come back with their follow-up. But we're going to talk about it with Mr. Christopher Melcher, attorney at law. How you doing, Christopher?
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, great day. A lot of stuff to break down today.
A lot of stuff. We also have Ann Silvers. So glad to have you because, man, Dr. What's his name?
Spiegel.
Spiegel. Oh my God, Spiegel made a lot of us go insane today. I'm so excited to have you break it down. Welcome back to the show, Ann.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah.
Also have Steph the alternate, and it's Kim here as always. So happy to have you both. How you doing?
Hey up.
Thanks
for having me.
I see Lewis here, but as our own Mr. Hollywood himself, Mr. Lewis Leck is here as well. So thank you. We're going to get to him. Lewis, I'm going to get to you more in the second half of the show when we talk about that expert. But in the meanwhile, in fact, can you turn yours off, and I'm going to bring you back because I know you
okay,
won't be as
I'll be
offended.
back.
Just stay there, whatever, in the audio, because we have 4 on screen. And when we get to Mr. Hollywood, I need Lewis's insight because that was insane. This expert came on. And she had no idea what she was talking about. I know more about Hollywood than apparently this expert that they paid $60,000. Oh my God, I'm in the wrong line of work. Anyway, we'll get to that as well. But let's start with, we have 2 doctors I want to speak about. First up was Dr. Moore, orthopedic hand surgeon, who came on the stand. We're going to go there, then we're going to get deep into Dr. Spiegel, who made a lot of you guys upset. And then we're going to get into Kathryn Arnold, who it really just felt like was Amber's mouthpiece. Like she was a Hollywood expert, but suddenly just was... That's what Amber told me. I don't even know how that was all allowed. But I want to let's start with Spiegel. We're going to come back to the hand doctor because the hand doctor was a frustrating part, but I think let's start with the lead, which is the guy that everyone's talking about. Dr. What's his name from Phineas and Ferb?
Dr. Lemony Snicket.
Lemony Snicket. This guy has become a meme, and usually I don't want to encourage. I don't want to encourage. I want us to focus on the issues at hand. But my God, this guy became a meme, and I understand why. He was a complete mess on the stand. Actually, let's go before I even start playing clips. Christopher, I mean, this guy just completely walked right into this, and then just gave them way more than needed to. Was all over the place. This was the first witness. What do they call it? When they're aggressive. What's the term for that?
Combative, but hostile, and it was unnecessary. Look, when he started his testimony, I thought this was effective for Amber because he was saying things that were within his expertise about drugs and how drugs affect your personality, your behavior, your memory, your ability to control impulses. And he talked about each type of drug that Johnny had admitted taking. He talked about the effects of taking several of these or combining the drugs, which Johnny has admitted to doing. And then to say, well, hey, if you're under the influence of all these things for a very long period of time, as Johnny has admitted doing, it can have an effect on a person. He should have just shut up right there and let the jury then conclude whatever they can conclude from that, or let the lawyers argue whatever they want to argue from that. That would have been brilliant testimony. But then he goes steps in it, and what we call gilding the lily, which is now, you, doctor, have all this expertise in something. Now go apply it to somebody you have never evaluated and tell me based on reviewing partial records, mostly that were based on Amber Heard's account, and that you're going to assume all of that is true and now render basically a diagnosis evaluation about psychological traits that Johnny Depp has and that he's all of a sudden this risk to humanity. That was idiotic. It gave the floor then to Johnny's attorney to totally destroy the guy and then take away whatever weight that was to the first part of the testimony.
Well, it feels like it took away Dr. Hughes' testimony. I know you were saying that too, Kim, when it brought up. It basically took away any expert who hasn't diagnosed both. And I'm going to go to you right away, Anne, because you obviously you've written the book. In fact, I have it here. You've written the book on narcissism and abusive. Here, sorry, I have the link here. Men and women and how it really happens. You guys can go over to AnneSilvers.com and buy her book. A lot of you have. Thank you for doing that. Go support her. But Anne, you've written the book on this. Well, how frustrating was it to watch this guy just come out and then without ever talking to Johnny directly, just start labeling him as the gaslighter, him as the one instigating all this stuff that he just was like suddenly this expert on. What was your instinct when you were immediately watching this?
Yeah. I totally agree with Christopher. And in terms of, at the beginning, I was thinking he's damaging to Johnny. But they didn't need an expert to come in and say Johnny uses drugs, but they were able to potentially use him to say the compounding effects and that kind of thing. But then he so went far afield by doing diagnosing, and then they got him on this Goldwater Rule. The American Psychiatric Association says you're not supposed to, oh, there you are. You're not supposed to evaluate and diagnose people when you haven't had personal contact with them. And they spent ages on that. And he comes back with saying it's a substance abuse disorder. And he keeps calling it a substance abuse disorder instead of just saying Johnny abused substances. And he wants to call him narcissistic personality disorder. He starts off with traits and then he says, but really, I think that he's got narcissistic personality disorder. And then they do this whole thing with IPV and saying this laundry list of things that are markers of somebody who commits IPV. And then with this bringing in, and Johnny fits all these things. To me, one of the things that stood out to me about that list is, as so often, what Amber accuses Johnny of is actually Amber. It's actually the things Amber does. So I don't know if the jury would recognize, I would hope that they would recognize this list of traits, markers of IPV, people who abuse. I would hope they would recognize him as that's the things that Amber does. So the list included minimize. Are you going to show it?
We have it. I think we have some clips we can play. Yeah, I have 2 clips I was going to play, and we can get some feedback in case people miss this because some of you don't get to watch it. I want to start, and this is sort of more going to be towards you, Christopher, because before they even started, this is the first time I've seen either side go against a witness to say, no, we do not accept them as an expert. And it was a very interesting thing that I want to play because it set the tone, and I think is what really unnerved him later. So I think, and I get to play that in the first video. We did a video today about Dr. Spiegel, but I thought let's play this. It's 5 minutes, but I want you to see Wayne Dennison completely shake and spook him right at the start of when it's like, "Hi, I'm here." And then Elaine goes, "All right, we'd like to submit him as an expert. Does anyone object?" And then Wayne's like, "Actually, yes."
Have you published and lectured on the causes and effects of intimate partner abuse?
Yes, I punctured, I believe, 2 articles on the effects of trauma, and in that trauma was intimate partner violence.
Are you familiar with the hallmarks of intimate partner violence?
Yes.
Are you familiar with what causes intimate partner violence?
Yes, there's a multiple explanation that cause intimate partner violence. And if I kind of just mention at this point, too, that when we are discussing intimate partner violence, I think it's imperative for the jury to know we are talking about repetitive behavior over periods of time. And the type of abuse can be any physical, psychological, sexual, but just as important is for one of the parties to maintain some uneven element of control or to maintain power, control, or authority. So there are a lot of facets to intimate partner violence. I know people tend to think of it as just the actual abuse act, but there's more to it than just the actual abuse act. Abuse act's important, but it's not the sole thing.
Your Honor, I'd move to qualify Dr. Spiegel as an expert in the field of psychiatry and behavioral sciences with specific emphasis on drug and alcohol abuse, intimate partner violence, and the effect of these as they pertain to the issues in this case.
You've never conducted any empirical research on individuals who experience intimate partner violence, have you, sir?
I've done review articles on patients who suffered from trauma. So the answer is, I haven't done any studies like where you give them medication for treatment or try one treatment versus another. I've reviewed the body of literature on intimate partner violence to get 2 review articles, yes.
So you've read about it, is what you just testified to.
I would have to disagree with you on that, sir. Reading about it and writing a review article are completely 2 different things, sir.
All right. You haven't authored any articles specifically on IPV, have you, sir?
As a subset of trauma, the answer is yes. In terms of in the name of the title of the article, the answer is no. I've never written any books on IPV, although temporomandibular disease, in terms of psychiatric issues, does have a higher frequency in those patients who have suffered from trauma, including intimate partner violence.
Temporal mandibular disease deals with problems with the jaw. What is temporal mandibular?
The temporal mandibular disease is a problem with oral issues, yeah, but there are many patients who complain of oral issues where the oral surgeon cannot find a reason for it. And the reason why they can't is because people who have suffered from trauma and intimate partner violence are prone to increased sensitivity of somatic sensations, which can manifest in temporomandibular disease. Thank you, I appreciate that. Nice plug for my book, too, thank you.
I'm not asking you about trauma because you want to talk about trauma. I'm asking you about IPV specific.
I will reiterate again, you cannot separate intimate partner violence and say that is a separate rubric aside from trauma. Trauma is overall, intimate partner violence is part of trauma. And the answer to the question is any individual who suffers from a dissociative disorder, which I am the author of a chapter of, suffers from trauma, whether it be at the hands in childhood or it be the hands of an intimate partner.
Right, but you've already testified that half your practice is trauma and a subset of that practice is IPV.
PubMed, actually, why don't you go to PubMed right now and Google, put PubMed Spiegel DR, and you'll find that number is 72 with 2 waiting to be impressed. 1 submitted, so that'd be 75, so it's around 80. So again, what's on my CV is not necessarily the most updated version, because I still publish since the CV's been given to you, sir.
Right, and not one of the 72, 80 articles has IPV in the title, right?
Correct. Not one of them has IPV. It does have trauma, but not IPV.
Right. And you've never presented on the topic of IPV specifically?
As a function of trauma and as a function of somatic illness, again, I would say to you that it's part and parcel of these illnesses. So the answer is yes, I have. Okay. The answer is yes, I have.
And IPV doesn't appear in your CV at all?
Loading.
If you say it's not in my CV, I will believe you. Okay. There's a lot of things that are not in my CV that I do.
And you're not associated with any professional literature on IPV. Is there any professional literature that you've contributed to relative to IPV specifically as opposed to trauma generally?
The answer to the question again, sir, is that you cannot separate this artificial separation you are trying to do between trauma and intimate partner violence. It is part and parcel of trauma. We don't thread it like that.
Your Honor, plaintiff would accept this witness as an expert on general psychiatry and with respect to the drug usage issues that Ms. Bredehoff referenced, but not with respect to IPV.
Now, all right, I want to get both Anne and Christopher's insight on this because it's interesting. Because the way I saw that, Christopher, going to you first, this completely unnerved him. Whether it worked or not, it set a tone to sort of completely discredit and throw him off his game, which it did. As the thing started, he was mumbling and flustering, and it got more agitated as the thing going. Do you think Dennison was fair in how he was pushing against his expertise? And I'm going to come to you, Anne. I'm curious, do you think it was fair from a clinical perspective? But first to you, Christopher, how did you react as a lawyer here legally and what was happening?
Well, yeah, it's very strange because I deal with mental health professionals on the witness stand every day, 28 years of my career dealing with this. And I found that it's amazing the egos, and no offense, Ann, that mental health professionals have. It is bizarre. These are the people that should be the pinnacle of mental health. But you just, it's like a little chink. You just little hit it like a very, like a wine glass. You just hit it on the side and boom, breaks. And I thought, and to Amber Heard's credit here, because I had predicted that Amber was going to lose it on the stand. How did Amber maintain her composure on the stand? But this guy in like 5 questions starts completely dissembling. Okay, so obviously we got a huge problem here. Now the thing is that he should have just stuck with his expertise, like we talked about. He starts going far afield, and then he's defending himself, and now he's on the end of that limb, and he's nowhere. So I think it was totally appropriate to go after him. And the one thing is, because he's so egocentric, the moment you say you're not qualified, well, now he's defending himself. He's been personally attacked. And the thing is, final point is that, look, as a clinician, he sees people, I am sure, every day of the week, every day of his practice that have been victims of or perpetrated these type of events. But he's not going necessarily into the detail to say who did what to whom. He's saying, look, you experienced something, let me treat you. So the fact that he's had patients who have suffered from something doesn't give him the qualifications to then say Johnny Depp did something to Amber. It doesn't work that way.
Well, and so was he qualified, Ann? Do you think Wayne here was being unfair in his cross there?
He was not qualified. He's not an IPV specialist. And he says it over and over again. Well, I do trauma. And it's a little piece of it is the IPV. He's not an IPV specialist.
So, all right, so fair. Neither of you thought he was out of line. All right, so there you go. It was a pretty smart move, I think, right out the gate to unnerve and discredit him. Now, Judge Penny allowed it, and so he stayed. And let's get to this first part where I'm definitely going to get back to you now, Ann. We're going to talk about the Goldwater incident, Goldwater Rule.
Absolutely, there were close to be traced. Ms. Heard had. Absolutely, Ms. Heard had.
Given that you've testified to it before.
Wait, sorry, I'm wrong. Here we go.
Was the Goldwater Rule.
Yes, sir.
This is an ethical rule, right?
It is an ethical rule. And yes, it's ethical. They say rules. It's an ethical guideline. Yes, they're guidelines.
Over time, the American Psychiatric Association has amended the rule, so it's not just about diagnoses, but it's also about professional opinions. Let me read this and see if you're familiar with it. It is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion about an individual based on publicly available information without conducting an examination. That's the rule, right?
If you're reading it directly, I will believe you.
Okay. However, a diagnosis is not required for an opinion to be professional. So my question is, it's not just diagnosis that this Goldwater Rule applies to, it's professional opinions.
If that was the case, there could be no expert witness testimony in the courtroom.
Psychiatrists are ethically prohibited from evaluating individuals without permission or other authorization, such as a court order. That's the rule, right?
This whole thing on expert, we might as well get rid of all the expert witnesses we've had throughout all of time. You are essentially saying that unless someone has directly evaluated it, this whole medical system we have, this whole legal system we have, is null and void.
I'm not saying.
No, yes, you are, sir. No, you are.
Give me a second.
So I am a member of the APA. That doesn't necessarily mean every single thing they put in there, everybody has to uncategorically agree with, because clearly that's not the case.
Did you agree in your deposition that the professional opinions you rendered were inconsistent with the Goldwater Rule?
Yeah. My first was inconsistent. If we're saying it's not made for Hollywood, but I'll even take that Mr. Depp's a public figure. The Goldwater Rule is saying we cannot do any expert witness testimony in our field.
What I'm asking you, sir, is did you comply with the ethical requirements of the APA when rendering the professional opinions that you've rendered today?
It is a requirement of the APA. It is not the requirement of the APA. Secondarily,
so the answer is no.
Secondarily. So all I'm saying to you, that means the whole field medical legal law is
His whole life is a lie.
corrupt and unethical for engaging in an act that the APA clearly says we should not do? And the answer is yes, I'm agreeing with that statement.
You're agreeing that the APA would deem your testimony and your professional
Look at
opinions
Ben.
rendered unethical.
I'm an expert witness. As an expert witness, and solely as an expert witness, that guideline is permitting that from occurring.
And you said the rule was for presidents, right? And
That was
public
initially for
figures.
president, yes.
Well, and the name of the rule came from that. But the rule says it is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion about an individual.
If you say this about an individual, any court would have to render an expert witness testimony invalid.
And it's a departure from the methods of the profession to render an opinion without an examination and without conducting an evaluation in accordance with the standards of psychiatric practice. Correct?
Well, again, by the way, for the record, intimate partner violence is not a psychiatric diagnosis. I'll start with that. Substance usage by themselves is not a psychiatric diagnosis. If you want to cut to the chase, psychiatry is not a diagnosis of that. Narcissistic personality traits is not a diagnosis. Ergo, I am basically commenting on the things that were brought to me, which are not diagnosis. But an evaluation, if I was going to treat a patient or anyone here, those are the steps I would take. And therefore, what I'm saying is neither IPV nor substance usage nor narcissistic personality traits a psychiatric diagnosis. And then under the rubric of expert witness testimony, you are saying I acted unethically under the rubric of expert witness testimony. So if you, sir, would like to proceed that expert witnesses are unethical, based on that, I am not going to sit here and disagree with you and waste everyone's time. I think it's fairly obvious. But thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it
Let's
is
start with the
It's a pausing there because we have a lot to go through. But he just basically admitted twice that his testimony is unethical. And gave it to him. And what are your thoughts on this whole ethicalness? Should he be diagnosing Johnny like this? Is he diagnosing Johnny? How are you reading all this when you hear it as a therapist, etc.?
So one thing is, it appears that the APA's rule is clear. These are ethics. The Spiegel wants to split hairs around it. They knew that this Goldwater thing was going to come up because they planted the seed. Elaine mentioned it when she, and so they knew. So why he wasn't better prepared to answer this question is astounding. He stumbled all over the place, and then he says, "Well, I'm not really diagnosing," and he goes through this whole thing about I'm not diagnosing. But then later in his testimony, he keeps saying substance abuse disorder, which puts it in a diagnostic category. And narcissistic personality disorder he uses. Again, a diagnosis. So he undoes his own argument. And I want to give a diagnosis to him. I diagnose him as arrogant.
Well said. Christopher, I mean, I want to get to your thought, but some people remind me, and I want to forget to do it. They did Google him, by the way, guys. They did Google him. They did not find good reviews on his Google. And these were not like Depp heads coming in to rip him apart later. These were years old reviews saying that he, prompted some of his patients to suicide due to his mistreatment of them. So yeah, he's been trending and all over, and people are not a fan of this guy and weren't a fan of this guy before. There's other YouTube videos that are now getting unearthed about his. Anyway, digging a little bit more into what's going on here. But Christopher, how do you feel like Dr. Spiegel is performing at this point?
Well, it's horrible, and look, I'm like I say, deal with this all the time, and I always make was done here an objection to qualifications, try and keep the expert out. And, look, it's frustrating that the court allowed him to express these opinions, but had the court granted, which I'm sure Johnny's team tried to keep this guy out or limit the testimony, had the court granted that, the testimony would have been limited to these things we talked about earlier about, like, hey, tell us about drugs and how drugs affect people. That would have been damaging at testimony.
Right.
The fact that the judge allowed this really screwy, unethical opinions to be rendered in court basically now took the rug out from everything he had to say.
But I mean, couldn't we say Dr. Hughes did the same thing?
Well, of course, and I did say that from right at the beginning. I mean, Dr. Hughes is not an expert on whether some event happened prior in time. Psychologists don't know any better than anybody else whether an event occurred unless they witnessed it. So that she should have never said, oh, I think this act occurred. There's no expertise for that. And what they can testify is about, like, and what he appropriately said is, like, most all of this IPV stuff is all about power and control. That's what sources it, and then we see symptoms of it. Fine, give us the education, and then the jury can conclude whatever it wants to with that info. But then when you try and tie it to an individual is when you become unethical, and fortunately, he was debunked. So, and you could see in Elaine's attempt to rehabilitate this guy is to basically saying, well, didn't you observe, okay, you didn't evaluate him correct. Even though the court denied the evaluation. So he's, Johnny's being criticized for not attending an evaluation that the judge said you do not have to attend. So that should never came up. Secondly, Elaine says, well, look, you did see him doodling and eating candies. And isn't that somehow now give you the right to diagnose him as a narcissist? I mean, literally tried to get him to say that. And the judge is like, no, we're not allowing this to happen. But this is how ridiculous this testimony got. But I have a question, Kim and Steph. I mean, because like I say, it's hard because I'm looking at this from my filter of doing this all the time. It drives me nuts. But is this obvious? Is this obvious to the jury based on the information that you saw that this guy acted unethically?
Totally. Without a doubt. He wasn't professional. He wasn't level-headed. He was absolutely aggressive, which is the opposite of what you would expect any doctor to be. You'd be expecting a doctor to be caring, compassionate, but he just was like a bull in a china shop. That's how he came across. And the one thing that got me was he has done no empirical research into the matter, yet feels that he is an expert to be able to discuss it because he's done review papers on it. Guys, that's a big, massive difference in terms of knowledge and skill on the matter. And this is do you know what? I look at Dr. Spiegel and I'm just, my opinion, conspiracy theory, whatever, an angry bull in a china shop quack. I think he's a quack. For want of a better term, a quack. His whole testimony, really, in the grand scheme of things, unless I'm completely off base here, should actually be thrown out. Because what expert opinion? Yeah. He's not an expert on it. Why was he there? Why was he allowed to be heard? Should have all been thrown out. But yeah, that was kind of like my armchair analysis on the situation.
I think something that jumped out to me immediately was that as he was going over the rule that he brought up and was now saying it was more of a guideline than a rule, and I was getting Pirates flashbacks at that point. But separate from that, I was like, well, yeah, technically this is null and void. But you know whose testimony isn't null and void? Dr. Curry. Because she did both of them. So truthfully, we only have one doctor or mental health professional that has given evidence here that is credible. Thank you for proving the point.
Exactly. And it really does feel like he just helped Johnny's defense more than anything, than Johnny's argument more than anything else. I don't even know what's happening this moment, but everyone in the court just has their mouth open. I wait.
I love that guy in the yellow tie.
Any
like, what?
Whatsoever of Mr. Depp today or ever.
No, I probably would say to you that certainly I would not say narcissistic personality, or I would say traits. Certainly from what I have read, intimate partner violence is not a diagnosis. So the answer is no for that. Narcissistic personality traits.
So he's not diagnosing him, but here he is going to try and diagnose.
Not diagnosing it.
Well, and in a minute he will again.
If I want to tell me that substance use disorder is a psychiatric diagnosis, the answer is yes.
But that wasn't an issue, was it? Whether Mr. Depp used substances?
No.
Oh, so you're saying he's already admitted to the diagnosis?
No.
He's already admitted to the use of the substances. Oh. Narcissistic personality disorder is a DSM-5 diagnosis, correct? correct?
Correct. It's a provisional diagnosis of probably narcissistic personality disorder, but yeah, I mean, I do believe that.
Well, but when you say provisional diagnosis, you know the DSM-5 requires, in order to find that diagnosis, 5 of the 9 factors.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't done that analysis. You've never made that diagnosis. You've just identified certain factors.
That are criteria for the diagnosis.
Right. But you need 5 of 9 to get to the diagnosis. You've already told us that you didn't make a diagnosis. You're just identifying traits, correct?
I'm identifying traits that are consistent with the diagnosis, yes.
Right. Did you testify in deposition that the existence of traits, as opposed to the disorder, doesn't have a correlation with IPV?
If I said traits do not have a correlation with the, if that's what I said, and I don't remember saying that, narcissism has a correlation with the diagnosis. Yes, that part's true. Narcissism has correlation with IPV. Again, sir, you're not allowing me to answer. Narcissism absolutely has risk factors associated with IPV.
Narcissistic personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV, yes or no?
Yes.
And you previously testified that there is no literature at which you are currently aware that the mere presence of narcissistic traits is a risk factor for IPV.
That's incorrect. Cluster.
You didn't testify that.
Every resource on intimate partners will support that cluster B traits, where narcissistic personality falls under, is a risk factor for intimate partner.
Any narcissistic trait in and of itself is a risk factor for IPV.
But you are mischaracterizing what I said. And I'm not sure, the thing I don't understand is, I'm not sure why we're arguing psychiatry, because I'm telling you what it is.
Dr. Siegel, you just need to answer the questions.
Okay.
That's not a good sign when the judge corrects him, is it, Christopher?
No. I mean, this isn't an objection, where the attorneys are kind of reprimanding the witness. This is the judge saying, look, man, you just got to answer these questions. This is a professional, paid witness. You'd think he would understand. The attorney asks questions and he gives answers, but the judge had to tell him that.
You can watch more. I'm gonna get to some of the juicier stuff. So here they really got to him and they hit that hard. But here comes where it gets really egregious.
You rendered an opinion about Mr. Depp's purported cognitive impairment.
Yes.
What do you use as a baseline for analyzing Mr. Depp before you watched his deposition?
What do I use as a baseline for that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my baseline would probably be how I've seen him interact in public with others. I've seen him interact in media. I've seen him interact and his process speed is certainly not slow.
At deposition, didn't you say that what you did was compare Mr. Depp's performance in lots of pirate movies against his deposition testimony here?
What I said was I've seen Mr. Depp do apology ads. I've seen him interact with the media regarding to that. All I'm saying.
Let me ask you about pirates, though. You compared pirates to the depositions given in this case.
Then I apologize for what I said. Ooh. Then I misspoke.
You misspoke? You didn't make the comparison?
Right now, just a second ago? Just a second ago, I may have said that I misspoke. I apologize, I misspoke.
Okay. Because you can't compare pirates to sworn testimony, right?
Yes. You can judge someone's processing speed at any time. Like I'm judging yours right now, you're judging mine. We all judge processing speed as a baseline because of what we know about each other. I would say your process speed right now
They just
is
looked
not
at
slow.
each other, Ben Chew and Camille, be like, WTF.
Well, get ready for the processing speed.
So I mean, we judge your processing speed. I'm just saying to you.
Yeah. But no, any of Mr. Depp's other portrayals in movies, did that affect your analysis of processing speed?
Only I've seen him interact on interviews, and that was it.
But Willy Wonka doesn't matter to you? You see him in that movie, Charlie and Chocolate Factory?
Hashtag Willy Wonka matters too.
Processing speed.
Do I have to answer that question, Your Honor?
You have to answer questions. Yes, sir.
No, you'll be happy to know I didn't see Willy Wonka. I didn't see 21 Jump Street when it happened. Whatever it was about. No, I did not.
I mean, does it get worse than that, Christopher, as a witness? Even Elaine at that point had have been like, no?
Yeah, this is just so weird. It's so weird. And it's all self-inflicted. He did not need to do any of this stuff. And I think...
Sorry. It's really funny. Ellie, you couldn't have, and I just love the comedic timing of Judge Penny. Yes, you have to answer questions. Because I don't think she meant it to be funny, but my God, that was funny.
The whole idea that it's like if he was watching media to try to understand Johnny, he brought up Willy Wonka. I'm going like, is he judging him by Sweeney Todd? Is he judging
What about
him
Edward
by
Scissorhands?
Is he judging him by Edward?
He's obviously not really watched the Pirates film, because Captain Jack Sparrow is pretty much on it, but he's actually diagnosed Captain Jack Sparrow as having a slow processing speed. Clearly really not watched the films properly. And yeah, hashtag Willy Wonka matters too. Yes, Willy Wonka matters too. Oh, that was a burn. Burn.
If he really wanted to burn him, the response would have been, no, I'm a fan of Gene Wilder. Now, that would have been a burn. That would have been a burn, and he missed the opportunity. Sorry, Johnny fans. I will always stand Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, and if he had done that, it would have been like, boom, he would have gotten Johnny. But no, it was, what? That was unbelievable. And any diagnosis you can offer based off that performance?
I don't know. It's bad.
It's a bad look.
But I would go back to the arrogance.
Yes.
More proof.
I think there's a little bit more here for the comedy fans.
All right. You made a very kind admission, I think, early on in your deposition. What were the circumstances under which you decided to call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Under somebody call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Yeah, you called Mr. Depp an idiot in your deposition.
Okay. So I think it was in the context. I probably should read the context of it, because I think the context was, and what I thought it was related to was, if you're coming to some deposition, what I think I said was that if you're going to do a major thing to a trial that you're involved with, I think you'd be an idiot to come in the night before.
All right.
It's not what he said, because they're going to read what he said.
I didn't call Mr. Depp an idiot. I certainly called that planning an idiot. I didn't call him an idiot.
So the words, so I mean he's an idiot, are mistranscribed?
No.
Is idiot a professional opinion?
I wasn't writing a professional opinion.
Yeah. Is it a psychiatric opinion?
And that follows the Goldwater Rule.
How does it follow the...
Oh, you just said that I'm not rendering a professional opinion. I just said idiot. That's not a...
No, so idiot is not a professional opinion?
Mm-hmm. If I said the word idiot, it was an idiot in planning. It wasn't making him an idiot.
Guys, who's the idiot?
Rendered an opinion...
Who's actually, Anne, who's being the idiot right now? Do you use the word idiot lightly when you're with your patients?
No, and you can't imagine some psychiatrist using it lightly in a deposition. How ridiculous. I would say he's met at least 3 criteria points for arrogance, though.
Interesting. Well, and again, it shows it. Do you feel like it's showing his bias? Because that's a theme I want to make sure we're showing clear today. I feel like all of these witnesses get very defensive, which to me is a sign of, right, well, I'm getting paid to, defend my client here and do what I'm supposed to do. The reality is, like, some of these questions that are being asked, he should have to answer honestly, like, yeah, no, I wasn't there, or you're right, I don't know that. But he's trying to, right? Am I crazy in seeing that the sign of defensiveness is as a sign of bias and potential lying?
Well, I think calling Johnny an idiot and then defending himself calling him an idiot is not even bias. It's addressing how bad he is at this.
Right. He's made his opinion up.
Well, it's just a ridiculous thing to say.
Basically that he's the idiot instead, Anne.
Yeah.
There you go. It goes around full circle. Ties itself in a nice little idiotic bow.
Yeah. So the judge, there's a few more moments where the judge does bother him, but obviously he and Ben Chu were both trending as people, and this clip has now gone mega viral. And just the reactions of Team Johnny, just stunned face of like, what's happening? It's definitely become another moment, a big moment of the trial. Like Johnny's like, he's got enough cognitive sense to like catch what's happening and pretty quickly. Am I watching this correctly?
I wonder what Amber though is thinking, because she's, I don't know who's paying her legal bills. That's another mystery to me.
Oh, I found out actually. Do you know who's paying her legal bills? Her insurance company of her house.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Huh?
Okay.
I was going to do a video, and I might do a separate one with you to talk about that in more detail. But apparently, I learned from a Hollywood insider that which is a common practice for defamation. You may know certain celebrities and people can somehow get their home insurance to cover it, and so her team, to their credit, figured that out, and so now that's who's fitting the bill for this, which is like. So it's not even the Johnny money that I can't spend the Johnny money. No, it's the insurance that's paying for it.
Yeah,
So she
your
still has the money.
homeowner's insurance will cover for things, but not business related. So they're probably under some reservation of rights. But that's interesting because I mean, there's no way she's writing checks for all this. But still, whether she's paying or not, it's affecting her. And I got to think. I mean, she's bright. She knows this is bad. And so I got to think she would rightfully be upset at her attorneys, because we vet the experts and we need to protect our experts to make sure that they don't go out of bounds, because it just totally cheapens all of their testimony. So this was a failure by her counsel, just saying like, look, stick to your expertise, because he does have expertise. Stick to what you know and don't say anything what you don't know. And then nobody would be talking about him right now.
You know who was a fan of him, guys? What a surprise here. Guess who was a fan of him? Eve Fartlow. This is the most bizarre cross-examination I've ever seen. Spiegel is a phenomenal witness, relentless and unshakable. I mean, as if this woman could lose any more credibility. The one who was kicked out of the trial for shadily, tricky tactics. She finds him relentless and unshakable. Oh my. Well, that's maybe an insight of how Amber's reacting, because her girlfriend is in love with him. I couldn't even believe this.
You literally watched Spiegel XE like shut down. How is he unshakable?
It's like multiple times.
Even the freaking judge shut him down.
I swear, there's a world of delusion that is, in our reality, and I don't know what it's like there, but sometimes I want to go there because it seems like things are nicer. I can't. I don't. Wow.
And what's your diagnosis of Eve? You've been watching some of what is this? I mean, I know you're not. We're joking, but
I don't want to give her a diagnosis.
But what is your opinion of Eve here's response? Like this is insane.
Well, she's just Amber's mouthpiece. Yeah, she's just speaking what Amber wants.
Well, and that's what all these witnesses, all these experts, they're all just exactly the mouthpiece. And before we move on to the next one, all three of these witnesses today were Amber's mouthpiece, without a doubt. And the Hollywood expert, I feel like, was the most egregious example of who was on the script, who was reading whatever they want. There's literally a moment, Christopher, I meant to ask you, as that Hollywood, what's her name, Kathryn Arnold, was literally at one point says, well, that's what Amber told me, which to me just felt like, how is that allowed? She's literally just getting the hearsay, what Amber's telling her, and now she can just be an expert. So if I'm on trial, I can just hire somebody, pay them, tell them what I want, and then suddenly they will then confidently sit there as the factual person to say, well, this is what happened because I heard it from the person who's on trial. Is that typically how that works, or is that crazy?
It should not, but it happens all the time, and this is what I'm fighting against, because in these big cases where there's money, they'll go out and hire somebody. You'll never get Dr. Curry or a Dr. Curry to do that. You can never pay her enough money to come in and just saying, hey, why don't you go diagnose somebody you've never evaluated? Not happening. But there's unethical people out there who will do it. And these are the hired guns. These is the junk science that happens. And unfortunately, courts allow it. And unfortunately, some judges and juries are too foolish to see beyond it, and they buy it. So sometimes it sticks. This happens all the time. And then we're sitting there trying to debunk it and saying there's ethical rules, which now, are changed into, no, they're guidelines. No, they're rules that apply to him. So again, it's unfortunate that this is allowed in, but it should not be.
Steph or Kim, I'll make sure I give you a chance, and I'll come back to you to wrap with you, Ann, on Dr. Spiegel. Any other final thoughts on Spiegel?
Sorry, Kim, go, please. Sorry.
I have a friend of mine, and he has an expression sometimes when he meets people that he doesn't understand, where he just says, I don't know how they tie their shoes in the morning when they get up. And I feel like he's one of these people. I don't understand how he's there. I don't understand why he thought this was a good idea. I can't understand how they paid him to do this. But at least it's entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, sad, but something. Steph?
Quack, 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 quackity quack. And then the other thing with what you guys just mentioned a little bit earlier on is, and you'll be making a video on it, fair play, but if Amber Heard insurance company is footing the bill for her legal team, then hasn't she technically lied under oath, saying, I would have given the money to charity, but Johnny sued me.
Yeah, that does open the door for that. Very smart. Very smart.
I do have a brain somewhere, Mr. Meltzer. Sometimes it does appear.
Here was that moment, I think.
All right, now we've seen Mr. Depp during this trial doodling and eating candy. What, if any, evidence would that suggest that he has narcissistic traits?
Objection, Your Honor. No foundation.
I'll sustain the objection.
And first of all, we don't have the footage of it, but I wish I did. But if you go back, Camille immediately after that grabs a piece of Johnny's candy and eats it very, very clearly to the whole jury in a queen move to be like, I guess we're all, I guess that's all of us. Christopher, you're going to say something. I'm going to come back to you, Ann, to wrap us up on this. But go, what were you going to say, Christopher?
Well, no, I mean, it's the premise of the question is just absolutely ludicrous that somebody who doodles when they're sitting there for like 8 hours a day and has a little piece of candy, I mean, it could somehow be evidence of a mental disorder it's an insane question.
Well, and what I've heard, the reason he's doing it is, I don't know if it was who told me, but it's to curb the smoking because he smokes and he can't smoke for hours at a time. And so apparently the sugar or whatever it's a distraction for him to suck on the candies to curb that while he's there having to, be there for hours on end. So it's ridiculous. And coming back to you to wrap up on Dr. Spiegel, final thoughts from you.
Well, the doodling could be the ADD. It could be anxiety. And it could be dealing with your abuser being in the room with you, just trying to deal with that.
But it's very boring to be the party because, like attorneys, like we gotta listen, we gotta take notes, we gotta be ready to respond, object. The party just sits there.
Yeah.
What is, Johnny and Amber have no role other than just to sit there, except if they're on the stand. So of course it's gonna be boring.
Yeah, but any other final thoughts?
One positive thing that I felt came out of the testimony, not because they wanted it to, but they did do this laundry list of these are the markers of IPV, and included minimizing and justifying IPV, which is what Amber does, and she does it when she says, "I didn't punch you, I hit you." Victim blaming, which a whole lot of this trial is about victim blaming against Johnny. Gaslighting, which was what Amber does to Johnny and to the jury, claiming the victim is an abuser. Again, this is what Amber does. It's not what they meant to do with the testimony, but it's a possibility that the jury will put it together and be thinking about Johnny as that laundry list was mentioned.
Well, and you would know because you wrote the book. There it is. Get Abusive Men by Women. It happens. It hurts. And it's time to get real about it. If you want to get Ann's book, you can over there. I just put in the comments as well. But I appreciate you coming here to do this. You can stick around. I want to talk about this next doctor. I know you have a little bit of time. How much do I have with you, Christopher, before I know you have to go?
I got 15 minutes.
Okay. Ann, are you good for a little bit more?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's jump over to the orthopedic doctor, Dr. Moore. Here he is, another doctor who clearly was paid to be there and wasn't there to address Johnny's wound, never treated him, never saw it in reality. Let's hear about Dr. Moore.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Dr. Moore.
Good morning.
So Dr. Moore, actually, I forgot. Dr. Moore just says it's impossible that a glass bottle could have done it. Was basically the gist of all Elaine's whole, or I guess it was Rottenborn, came out and did it, and said this whole thing is no, it had to be, it couldn't have been a wine bottle. Johnny's not telling the truth. The hand was flat. Well, then answers Queen Camille.
You said you reviewed Mr. Depp's video deposition. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you testified that Mr. Depp demonstrated that his hand was flat on a surface. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's not entirely accurate, is it, though?
No, his description was relatively consistent in both, including turning and resting the hand on the edge.
Isn't it true, Dr. Moore, that when Mr. Depp did the demonstration in his deposition, he showed that his fingers were hanging over the bar?
Even hanging over the bar, it still leaves the dorsum of the hand or the nail vulnerable.
That's not my question, Dr. Moore. My question is, isn't it true that Mr. Depp said his fingers were not laying flat on a table, they were hanging over the bar?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, you knew that when you made that opinion.
But I said that he had said they were slightly curled over, I think, was the description that I gave.
Your description in this courtroom was that it was laying flat, and I think you've done that now twice. But in your deposition, you testified that his fingers were actually hanging over the bar. Isn't that correct?
So that's a distinction that perhaps I misstated.
Dr. Moore, is it fair to say that you have no personal knowledge as to how Mr. Depp injured his finger in Australia, correct?
No, I have no personal knowledge. My impression is based on his description. It was not in Australia.
Therefore, you have no personal knowledge as to how that injury was sustained.
Correct.
You also never personally examined Mr. Depp's finger, did you?
Correct.
And you never provided any medical treatment to Mr. Depp in connection with his finger injury, did you?
I did not.
Based on the pictures that you reviewed of Mr. Depp's finger injury, you cannot determine what particular object caused the injury to his finger.
Well, I can't determine exactly what object did it. I think that I can say with confidence that the described mechanism of the bottle hitting and shattering the finger was not consistent with the appearance of the injury.
I understand that.
And
My
I think
question is just very specific. You can't determine the object that caused the injury to Mr. Depp's finger.
I can't determine the exact object, but I can determine that it's unlikely that it was sustained in the manner described.
A bottle is a foreign object, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So you can't rule out that the injury to Mr. Depp's finger was caused by a vodka bottle.
Well, based on the injury pattern, I can say that the described mechanism of injury is inconsistent with medical findings.
Right. But because a vodka bottle is a foreign object, you can't rule out that a vodka bottle is what caused Mr. Depp's injury.
Well, I can't rule out that a vodka bottle caused the injury.
Do you remember giving testimony in this case, Dr. Moore?
Yes.
And you were under oath, correct?
Correct.
Line 4, but you can't rule it out completely, right? Answer, I can't rule anything out completely. I can't rule out that he caught it in the door, cut it with a knife, or slammed it in the car door. Or, again, as Dr. Gilmer said, we can't definitively say what caused this injury. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
I would object. He just picked out half of his answer.
You can redirect.
Yeah,
I'll
as
overrule the
well as the
objection.
paragraph above.
Dr. Moore, there's no question pending. Thank you, though.
Stop talking.
You said you can rule out that the injury was caused by a vodka bottle.
I can rule out the injury as caused by the mechanism described by Mr. Depp in his deposition.
But you can't definitively say what caused the injury to Mr. Depp's finger.
Definitive injury is a crush injury, again, I can't say. I mean, I think that quite likely that the initial
But, Dr.
hinge
Moore,
closes about the fingers.
I understand that. But my question is,
I think it's important that they understand that.
this is the time for me to ask you questions. Your counsel will have the ability to rehabilitate you and ask
To
you questions on
rehabilitate
redirect.
you.
Right now, let's try my
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
You can't definitively say what caused the injury to Mr. Depp's fingers. Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Did you review any testimony from Ben King in rendering your opinions today?
No.
Did you see any of Mr. King's testimony at this trial?
I did not.
So you're not aware that Mr. King testified that he is the one who found Mr. Depp's finger, are you?
No.
And you're not aware that Mr. King testified that multiple broken liquor bottles were also found in the bar area, right?
Correct.
So you didn't consider any of this evidence in rendering your opinion about how Mr. Depp injured his finger in Australia, did you?
I did not.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
So he not only did he just testify and completely lie, it seems, about it had to be flat, and then she got him to admit it in the beginning, and then once she grilled him, she changed his tune. Well, no, I guess they were over, and I guess that wouldn't have made a difference. So he's caught there, but then she really gets him for the kill at the end. I thought there was this didn't get cut into the edit, but she comes back. Elaine tries to, what's it called? Object, and she.
Let's start over, because it's important the jury hears this. So in forming your opinion, did you consider Dr. Kipper's deposition testimony that while Dr. Kipper was providing emergency treatment for Mr. Depp's finger injury in Australia in the driveway of the house, Mr. Depp told him that his finger was injured when Miss Heard threw a vodka bottle at him?
I don't recall that from the deposition. I'd be happy to review it if you have the deposition available.
Why didn't they pull the deposition there, Christopher? Is this just they didn't have to at this point? It would have taken too long. They got him already?
Maybe just in the interest of time. I think I have a problem with this witness being outside his expertise. He's a hand surgeon. So if you go into a hand surgeon and be like, look, my finger fell off, you got to put it back on. Fine. They're not going to sit there and go into a lot of detail. They're going to say, how'd your fingertip fall off? Fine. But they're going to do this big forensic analysis to saying exactly how did you lose your fingertip. That's not his job. His job is to put it back, to fix it. And so an expert like this, an orthopedic surgeon, does not have expertise in the mechanics of an injury. He does not know how people get hurt to that level of understanding, and then to be able to say this injury is consistent with it or not. That's just not his job. So he was, again, outside his expertise. And then even Camille's question, kind of helps demonstrate this. Does it matter what somebody said as to whether medically there's evidence of an injury consistent with a vodka bottle? No. If his testimony is, as a physician, I'm looking at an x-ray, looking at photographs, it doesn't matter what the witness said. It matters what the condition of the finger was. Because otherwise, he's just coming in now and saying, I believe Amber over Johnny. And so he's an expert on the truth, which he's not. Not an expert on medicine, which is just saying, looking at the bone, looking at the x-ray, I can tell. And again, it's a ridiculous premise, because we all know we've been injured, or we've had kids injured in ways that we could never have, how could this possibly have happened? The mechanics of an injury are extremely difficult to recreate and think about. Throwing a bottle across the room and hitting a hand, or hitting something next to the hand and having the bottle fragments hit the finger. I mean, there's a million ways that incident could have progressed. And for him to say it didn't happen that way, and what's frustrating is I don't know how it happened. So we've all been to the doctor and we're like, there's something wrong with me. Is it this? And they're absolutely sure. No, it's not that. Well, what is it? Well, I don't know. Right. Well, if you don't know what it is, how do you know what it's not?
But again, it is the theme of today. It just, to me, the bias is so clear when he knows the answer to the question is, I don't know. And he doesn't want to say it out loud because he's being paid to be an expert for this side. Really bugs me, because shouldn't he just been very open and honest, be like, yeah, no, you're right, that's a foreign object, I wasn't there, I don't know. Like I said, it seems like my guess is that, but you're right, I don't know. That would have been such an easy professional way to do it. But you got the same vibe. He's a super defensive and doesn't want to give anything to Johnny's team because he's a paid witness for the defense.
Yeah, his demeanor was calm, unlike Spiegel, but still, he's way outside his expertise. He can just be like, look, I mean, maybe there's some things that are obvious that, causes or non-causes for this, but he should have just said, look, I put fingers together, I don't take them apart. And that ain't my thing.
Does that ever happen when an expert witness comes on the stand? Like in a case like this, I imagine some of these expert witnesses must be second guessing, seeing how popular and people are getting memed. Like, is there any version where you think they're like, you know what, Elaine, I don't want to come on this one and tell you the truth? Like, does that happen? Have you ever seen that happen, Christopher?
Well, it's a great question, because I was thinking that myself today, because we know this guy, Spiegel, is watching the media because he brought in this imperfect victim crap that we've been seeing pushed in the media. So Dad only saw that this weekend. Maybe it was going on longer, but he's definitely following this. And for him to know that, there's going to be intense public scrutiny of his testimony, and to go in there into that buzzsaw and do this, I was kind of thinking, like, why wouldn't he retract a little bit and being like, hey, okay, I'm gonna run down the middle on this one, because it's just he's laying himself out for it, and it's almost like this challenge where he thinks he is so qualified that nobody could possibly impeach him. Well, he's wrong.
Speaking of victims, one more thing before you go. I want to make sure I didn't miss this part, because I skipped ahead, but this was a very telling moment.
Miss Heard was diagnosed with that.
Yeah, and both of the diagnoses are in cluster B, and both of them are risk factors for IPV.
I'm not allowed to comment on the testing, so therefore, all I can say is that cluster B traits, and I'll tell you what they are. And by the way, I testified this before, which was that, one, I don't expect perfection from my victims. Two, absolutely there
Whoa! I don't expect it from my victims. Did you guys all hear that? I don't expect it from my victims. I mean, Freudian slip.
By the way, I testified this before, which was that, one, I don't expect perfection from my victims. Two, absolutely there were cluster B traits Miss Heard had. Absolutely, Miss Heard had.
Given that you've testified to it before.
I mean, that was Anne. Did that surprise you, hearing his Freudian slip there?
Well, I was so focused on the cluster B part, and I'd like to talk more about that, but I don't want to hold Christopher up if he's got more.
No, his slip. We're going to come back to cluster B, but the slip on victims is pretty telling too. No.
Well, I think he was saying, because they were talking about Amber having borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. And so he's saying, I don't care about that. I don't even care if she has those diagnoses, because the victim gets to have whatever they have. I think that's what he's saying.
Right. And he was totally disregarding the fact that Amber was actually diagnosed by Dr. Curry, and he just disregarded that like it didn't matter, which was very odd as well. All right, let's talk about the clusters, but before I do, I'll give Christopher your final chance to get out, because he's got an ABC interview, folks, where you're going to be sharing some information. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to be on ABC Prime. Just checking the time. I think our hit time is 4:48 Pacific, so 7:48 Eastern is when it's going to go live, and we're going to be talking about this stuff. And it's a great opportunity because a lot of people aren't following the trial like we are, so we can get that narrative out there, the truth, so people can see it. This was telling because over the weekend, we all saw the Amber side pushing in the media this imperfect victim story. And basically the way that goes is that, of course, a victim is not going to be perfect, that they may lie at times, they may have drugs and alcohol, they may committed acts of things themselves, and therefore we shouldn't be surprised by it. So what they're trying to use that is to basically de-emphasize all this other evidence, saying, well, I know Amber's lied. I know Amber has punched Johnny. I know that she's used drugs and alcohol herself. I know that we have all these angry recordings, but that's consistent with her being a victim, and those things actually now prove that she's a victim because she did so. But then this guy, Ann Hughes, has used the exact same type of behaviors on Johnny's side to say that equals him as the perpetrator. Now that is the sure sign of bias. When you take information and you use it to conclude something that favors the party that you are biased toward,
being paid to
but
support,
then use the same information and use it against the other disfavored party, that is a sign of a cognitive bias. And it also tells us that this guy's monitoring what's going on in the media, or that Amber's PR team is talking to him. I wish they would have followed up on that with him, but maybe they didn't know what the answer would be and didn't go there. But that whole imperfect thing, yeah, none of us are perfect. But to take that information and say that makes her the victim and him the abuser is nonsense. So again, ABC with Lindsay, 7:48 Eastern. Please check it out. And it's helpful to get that information out there for the broader public, because we're seeing this on your show, Twitter, other channels here, that are getting the facts out by people who are watching this trial. And this is like, become now our full-time unpaid jobs doing this.
Yep.
Watching every moment of the trial, sharing ideas with others, looking at the records. But most of the people, they don't have the time or interest to do that. And so they may bite at or respond to the imperfect victim thing, or don't blame the victim thing, or this is a further act of abuse that Johnny's doing against her thing. So the more that we can get the word out there to other people to say, just look at the facts, look at the truth, it has an impact.
Make sure you go follow Christopher over at CA_divorce on Twitter. You can also look him up on YouTube. Always a pleasure to have you. We will look on your ABC feed if we don't get you live. Catch it afterwards. Catch it at any point. Make sure you tweet it out. We will follow you. Thank you so much for all your insight here. Appreciate you as always.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right,
Thanks.
but Elaine, we got more to talk about. I want to get back to you on your, always a pleasure to have him. Elaine, back to you. You wanted to talk about the cluster B, of course. What did you want to say? Because he was bringing that. Oh, sorry. I'm so tired, guys. Everyone thinks I took a vacation. That was the meanest thing. Everyone thinks I took a vacation, but my family's sick. I'm still hungover from New Orleans, and I'm just trying to get through it. I'm staring at Elaine on my screen.
No excuse.
And,
no excuse.
I'm.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so mean. I just pulled a Doofenshmirtz. Anne, I know who you are. In fact, go buy her book. I'm going to buy one right now. Go buy her book. I plug her harder since I've called her Elaine. I don't know why. I'm so tired. Go buy her book because she deserves it. Anne, go buy her book right here. Love you, Anne. You know I love you. I love it.
What I want to say before we go on to the next thing is this bias issue, this victim and perpetrator, it's so gender biased. It's the guy is bad for everything he does, and the female is good for everything they do. And the female is only doing it because the bad guy made her do it. It's just so typical of the gender bias in the whole DV discourse.
Well, and as Christopher just said that whole thing about exactly this thing. It's like it is scary because now they're going to say, well, she's allowed to lie. We can justify it now. I don't know if you saw it, Ann, but others. I posted a whole video about my story, which has inspired guys. I've gotten the most amazing responses and support and love. Thank you guys. But yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm so engrossed in this trials, because it happened to me too. I get it. Women sadly lie. Humans lie. It's what happens. But this idea now that we're going to justify, well, her truth. She's allowed. She got it messed up a little bit, but the man's always going to be wrong. I mean, that's got to infuriate you based on all the work you've done.
It does. It does. And that's why I'm so excited about this trial and getting this out in front of people so they get their eyes open.
All right. Well, as I keep showing my signs of cognitive disarray, what did you want to talk about? I'm getting it back. You wanted to talk about the particle. What is it called? The particle B.
The cluster B.
Cluster B.
Yeah. Okay. So I was very excited to see that this came in. So it came in because Spiegel was talking about narcissism, and narcissism is a personality disorder. There's 10 personality disorders. 4 of them are what they call cluster B. And cluster B are the erratic and dramatic. And they are narcissism, antisocial, which antisocial is the same as sociopathy, and histrionic and borderline. And I just actually took a class on this. I took a class on cluster B personality disorders and IPV. And what the instructor was saying is, not only is there this connection between, let me back up. Not everybody who has any of these cluster B personality disorders is going to be abusive, but there's a high percentage of people who do abuse their partners who are in this cluster of personality disorders. And this is one of the things Spiegel said. But then they got to bring in that Amber was diagnosed with 2 of them, histrionic and borderline. And what the instructor was saying in the class that I just took is that if you are diagnosed with more than one of the cluster Bs, you are even more likely to act out in an abusive way. So that, and more dangerous. So I thought that was great that came in, and that Dennison was sharp enough to be able to tie it back to cluster B and bring in mention borderline and mention histrionic.
Yeah, he really does seem like he was doing this. He was on top of it, because not only just with this one, but the next expert, Arnold, which we now have our Hollywood expert, Lewis, here to help with, he really was on top of things. I'm glad you pointed out. And this was, yes, Wayne Dennison. Bravo. We've been giving, obviously, Ben and Camille all the support, but Wayne really stepped it up today. There were a couple moments where I was like, wait, don't let these people go. But it does seem like we're going to have some, judging by the guest list coming, we will get some more vengeance coming soon. Any other final thoughts, Anne, on Spiegel before we move on to the Hollywood expert or any of the doctors or anything?
No, I'd like to stick around if you.
Yeah, totally. I please do. I want to bring in our next expert, who is here, my man Lewis. What's up, Lewis?
What's up, man? Hey, I just want to let everyone know that I'm eating candy and doodling at the same time.
Damn it!
Right there. That's a
Lewis.
picture of Andy Signor from another planet. And there we go. This was my favorite day of testimony. Please give Smeagol here, a.k.a. What's it called?
Smeagol.
Gollum, his own show.
Seriously,
Please give him his
can he
own
get like a
show.
Disney Plus show or something?
Dude, tell me, put those Lewis heads up in the chat if you would not watch that. I'd totally watch a reality show on this guy. It'd be number one.
Totally. Netflix needs to hire him in a second. We watch him just be crazy experiments or something. I'm totally good idea. Can we call him up and get him on a contract? Well, Lewis, I'm excited because finally, our movie knowledge will have some weight here on this channel, Lewis. Oh my God, we are both clearly better experts than this woman who knew nothing about Hollywood. I couldn't even believe how ignorant she was to some of this stuff. In fact, before I want to go to you to get your thoughts, but we have so many things here to play of her. I thought before we get there, let's just set a tone. Here, there was a, let's see here. Sorry, there's a lot. I think this will set some.
And I looked at those actors, and I then saw, after they had their stars for a moment, if you will, I wanted to see where their careers went. So I looked at several actors to see, including Jason Momoa, her co-star, to see what happened in their careers after such a successful film as Aquaman.
So she's there as the Hollywood expert to basically come up with comps, as they call it, other actors to compare where Amber's trajectory should have been. Kathryn Arnold here was like, Aquaman was her Star is Born moment, and it was the biggest grossing movie of all time, and we're gonna have all this amazing opportunities, and that's why she's justifying the $100 million counterclaim. This is a very important witness for the defense because they need to justify that in order to win back that claim, right, and justify why they had it. So they brought in Jennifer, sorry, see, I'm getting everybody's name wrong. They brought in Kathryn here to not only justify that because she knows Hollywood, even though, guys, we all know Richard Marx a few weeks ago was definitely Mr. Hollywood, way more Hollywood than this guy. But they brought her in to sort of justify Hollywood and what happened to Amber and why she should get paid the money.
Came out. It's not a distinct actual, this is going to happen, but this is the probability with a reasonable certainty that with the right management team that she had and her acting ability and her looks and the press that she was getting and should have continued to get, that her career would have been similar to these other actors.
Who did you select as comparable actors for your comparison?
Well, I wanted to look at actors that were in superhero films that had done really well at the box office. So I looked at Jason Momoa, her co-star. I looked at Gal Gadot, who is in Wonder Woman. I looked at Ana de Armas, who was in Blade Runner. I looked at Zendaya, who was in Spider-Man, and I looked at Chris Pine, who was in Star Trek and also Wonder Woman. About the similar age range, all attractive actors, all with good acting skills, all able to do stunts. So it was a small pool to work from, but I took a wide range from those actors, both men and women, to see what could potentially happen to Miss Hurd's career.
Now, I had Mike pull this together because, Lewis, as I know we were looking at this implication that all these actors, Ana de Armas, Chris Pine, Gal Gadot, like, what is she smoking? Trying to compare Amber Heard's trajectory to. So, I want to get your thoughts on this, but as Lewis talks, here are some actors who were in huge blockbuster movies that a lot of people don't know who the hell these people are. The kid from Jungle Book, Aladdin from Aladdin, Sam Worthington has made some movies, but nobody knows who he is. How about the two kids from Shazam? Did you guys know who that? And the girl? How about Alden Ehrenreich, who was Han Solo? This guy was supposed to be the biggest star. How about, do you guys remember Laura Haddock from the hugely popular Transformers? Last night, no. How about, where did Taylor Lautner go? You're supposed to have this massive Stars Born trajectory. How about Taylor Kitsch, who's a way better actor, but could never really become that person they went? Armie Hammer in Johnny Depp's own laundry. This was supposed to be career-defining, huge star movie. Where the hell's Josh Hutcherson or Liam Hemsworth? If Liam Hemsworth didn't have that last name, he would know. And oh my God, I can't remember how many times they tried to make Alex Pettyfer a thing, and he never was. Lewis, did this infuriate you as much as it infuriated me of this comparison?
Kathryn Arnold here does not know anything. She's super biased. She thinks like because you're in a blockbuster movie, it guarantees you $1 billion contract for the next one. That's not the way it works. She said so many things that were just so irritating. Okay, so Zendaya plays MJ. That's a major character from a major comic book series. And she's also has a lot of followers because she's a singer on the side. So it's ridiculous that they're even compared to each other. Plus, I think even Spider-Man made more money than Aquaman. So I don't know what she's getting. She couldn't even tell you what, who's in Star Trek, anything. She's supposed to be the expert. I don't know, man. This lady was incredible.
Yeah, I'm trying to get, sorry, there's one more clip did Mike, can you find out if Mike finished the last one, Kim? He was working on the idiot version of this.
I'm not sure.
Is it up? I'm checking.
Said I think he uploaded everything.
She was also trying to imply that Amber Heard's character Mira, which no one knows what the hell that is. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Was a strong female character lead. It was Nicole Kidman's character that was more of a lead than her. As a matter of fact, she wanted to talk about posters. Nicole Kidman's the one with the poster. So
I think this breaks down some of the fact that some of the things she just didn't know about Hollywood. Here we go.
Testify under oath at a deposition, right?
Well, even so, they're not going to say anything negative.
Mr. Hamada's in the best
Sorry, hold
position.
on. Here we go.
Jason Momoa, that's one of your comparables, right?
Yes.
He's been prominent since 1999. He was in Baywatch in 99, 44 episodes on Baywatch. Do you know that?
You can look it up if you did. I'll go with that.
Right. But you remember him on Baywatch.
Actually, I didn't watch Baywatch, but...
Stargate Atlantis, he was on that, many episodes.
Right.
Did you know that?
Yes.
He played Conan the Barbarian.
In TV or film?
Film.
Okay. I don't have Mr. Momoa's resume memorized, so...
Why? You didn't look up this person, Jason Momoa's? You didn't even look up his resume? Who is this woman? How do you're all Miss Hollywood?
How is she an expert?
And you don't know? How about Game of Thrones? He's going to drop.
I understand how you came to the conclusion they're comparable, because I just want to spend a few minutes talking about Mr. Momoa's career. Game of Thrones was one of the most popular things on TV for a period of 3 years, correct?
Yes, he was.
And he was in Game of Thrones.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, he's the title character in Aquaman. Yeah, and he was Aquaman in a movie before the Aquaman movie started.
You mean Justice League and other things like that?
No,
Batman
Hollywood
versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. Wasn't he in that as Aquaman?
I didn't see that one.
Didn't see it. Miss Heard wasn't in that movie.
Good for her, though.
Not that I know of, no.
And he was in both Justice League movies.
Correct.
He's one of the most heroic characters in the recent Dune blockbuster.
He's not the lead, though.
I love
in
this.
Dune, no, he's not the lead.
Did you ever read Dune?
Spoiler warning.
No.
Pardon?
Did you ever read Dune?
No, but I've seen the movie.
No. Do you understand whether his character will come back from the dead in the third movie?
As again, I didn't read the book, so he might. I don't know.
That
We're just talking about that one movie.
That
so
might be
that's
a bit of a spoiler.
Oh, man. Dude.
So again, doesn't know shit about anything, constantly being snarky, trying to get everything. Go ahead, Lewis.
Well, she's arguing that Amber Heard was supposed to get like lead roles, and then she's first to point out that Jason Momoa didn't have a lead role in Dune. Like, well, isn't that against her point? Because Dune came out after Aquaman.
Right.
She just stumped her own idea there.
Exactly. She's all over the place.
Yes.
Have you also noticed, right? Let's just take Jason Momoa, Zendaya, and Chris Pine, because she mentions Chris Pine as well. She mentions the characters: Zendaya, MJ, and Spider-Man; Jason Momoa, Aquaman; Chris Pine, Captain Kirk from Star Trek, which, by the way, she had no freaking clue
Yeah,
I'm like, who? You say you're an expert. What kind of expert? Shiz the bed. Anyways, right? So you've got those three actors playing in big franchises, playing characters that are well known, not only just in like our circle, right? But normies, right? Normal going public will recognize those names, those particular character names, right? You go up to anyone in the public and say, who's Mira? Who is she?
No idea.
No idea. What she's doing is she's comparing Amber Heard's character Mira to the likes of characters that are well known in the public psyche.
100%.
And that's apples and oranges all day freaking long. How can she do that? She can't do that. It does not make any comparative sense at all.
Then she calls the lawyer an expert. Like, aren't you supposed to be the expert?
Yeah, that's what we're getting there. He calls him a movie buff.
But that's not the career path that Ms. Heard has had. She's never been the title character in a movie. She hasn't spent years on television.
Again, I don't have her resume.
Mr. Momoa remains.
She doesn't have Amber's resume in front of her either, guys. She didn't even memorize Amber's resume. She worked on this for 3 years. She doesn't have, and she talked to her all the time. She doesn't have Amber's resume in her head either.
Even though he's engaged in a recent divorce.
I don't know. I don't follow his fan base.
You don't follow Jason Momoa, but you use him as a comparable to come up with a $45
I said I don't follow his fan base. I understand him as a prominent actor in the business, but I don't follow his.
Miss Hollywood doesn't follow
Isn't fan base
Jason Momoa's divorce when she's comping him to Amber Heard.
Indicated that Gal Gadot is in Wonder Woman.
Yes, she's a star.
She's in fact Wonder Woman. She's the title character, and there's been now multiple Wonder Woman movies, right?
Yes.
And even before that, she was in franchise films.
Which one are you referring to?
Fast and Furious.
Excuse me, I honestly don't remember her being that as one of the main characters. I know it's The Rock and
you didn't even know she was in the.
knows The Rock. You mean Vin Diesel is the Paul Walker? She didn't even name the top lead.
Fast and Furious franchise.
I've seen it on her resume, but I didn't. Again, I'm not a fan of the Fast and Furious.
All right. You'll
Not a
agree
fan.
with me that Wonder Woman is a more prominent role than Mira?
If you're going to talk about apples to apples in that exact movie, yes. But Miss Heard was also in the biggest blockbuster movie, and the light that shines on Jason Momoa will also shine on her.
No.
So you have to
No.
look at it in
Bullshit.
context
Fireworks,
of
man.
the biggest movie that
In
DC
the DC
Comics is,
universe.
and also one of the biggest box office films ever, probably within the top 10 because I've looked at it.
Okay, well, let's do that. I've been waiting for this one, Lewis. Not only was it not in the top 10 that year, it was number 13. Ironically, guess who just beat it? A Star is Born. Lady Gaga's A Star is Born is the film that actually beat it that year. It's the irony, it couldn't get more as their Star is Born moment. I mean, now, to be fair, if you were to go globally, like, you know, everything, it ranks about 35 or something, I think, on the all-time global list. If you look at all films worldwide, but I think, is it here domestic? If I look up worldwide, here it is, all-time worldwide. It shows up around 24. So look, it made money. Let's be clear, it made money, and it does look like it is the highest-grossing DC film, which it still is. So I think that's what she has heard. So therefore, Hollywood doesn't know the difference between highest-grossing DC film as opposed to highest grossing film. But Lewis, does that bother you as well?
Well, her and the other lady that testified, I don't know if it was Amber Heard's sister, keeps saying the same thing, biggest movie of all time. So they obviously like got in cahoots with each other and talked about it. Talking about Jason Momoa, like his light in the movie, I'm happy for him. I'm glad DC made money with this. But what he shunned, how he shined in the film, she was dimming his light. Because she sucked, man. She couldn't even make eye contact with him during the film. It looked like she was in a different set, phoning it in. That's why she's not getting the gigs. That's the truth. And I also have an exclusive that I was going to drop on Nerd Report, but can I drop it here on Popcorn Planet?
Yeah, go for it. Hit the button.
Okay, here's the deal. Maybe you don't think this is a big deal or not. Someone called me and told me that when they weren't filming on set, they knew that there was no chemistry, but it was mostly on Amber Heard's side. So they kind of were encouraging Amber Heard and Momoa to talk to each other, like in between takes, so they could like get more comfortable with each other and stuff like that, so the chemistry will build up. It's something actors do, before they shoot a scene, and she wouldn't do it. So it's stuff like that. She was just like on her own in the corner. Maybe gave the impressions too snobby, but that's the vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I remember she put out that story basically bashing Momoa, saying that he was such a jerk because he would run over to the books while she was up there with her books, like in harnesses or whatever, or later, he would rip out middle pages of her books to prank her. So when she'd get there, she couldn't finish the book. No idea if that was true or not, but I do remember Amber trying to make that a thing. Maybe it was, I don't know. But she was out there in the press sort of shitting on Jason for that, which, I don't know. You'd think if you want to be in this franchise, don't, and he is, even if he is, he's a jerk.
My
Don't
source
put it
is
out there.
legit with Andy. I'm going to tell you right now. My source is legit with it.
Yeah. So my point is maybe he wasn't even doing that. She was already trying to like shit talk him before that even happened. Is what I'm wondering. But
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Here's more of Miss
Right,
Hollywood
so-
knowing all about Hollywood.
That light was going to shine brighter on her than someone who wasn't in that movie. And again, it would have just helped her in her career move forward, not stalled it and be in her world be silent afterwards. We're talking about Batman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Batman. The title character in that DC series has seen how many actors?
Several.
Michael Keaton.
Batman.
Val Kilmer.
You're a movie buff, yeah.
More than
Christian
you.
Bale was Batman.
Yeah.
This guy's more of a movie.
It's even kind of basic movie knowledge too. Like, come on.
I think he was, you're right.
George Clooney was Batman.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That one you
Guess
remember?
Robert Pattinson is now Batman.
Don't know. It's what we do.
Hollywood doesn't know who the new I'm sorry. Who the hell are you again? I get it. You don't know, watch them all, whatever, but you aren't paying attention to the biggest movie of the spring when you're in Hollywood. That Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves have now reinvented Batman. It's streaming. It's huge on HBO Max. It was a huge thing for we get maybe Lewis. How many theatrical movies are we even getting nowadays? 5? Like she can't keep track of the 5 big movies in Hollywood.
Who called this person on the stand, man? That's what I don't understand, dude. This is nuts.
Robert
Yeah, she's
Pattinson. I don't know who Batman is. There's a Batman movie out?
Twilight? What? Twilight
In
Part 2?
Hollywood?
In the industry,
No, it's
it's what
ridiculous.
you do to kind of get a sense of how much you're going to pay an actor, what they're worth in the foreign markets and the
Ma'am,
domestic
I think my
markets.
question was, did you know whether he was in Star Trek?
Yes, and you were asking me why I chose him, which is what this conversation is about. And again, he was part of Star Trek and Wonder Woman, but mostly because he was in Wonder Woman. And I don't know the exact time frame of which came first, but the fact that he's in both of them is consistent with what actors of this ilk tend to do once
He was the romantic lead. Let's call it for what it is. He was the romantic lead in Wonder Woman, and he was the lead in He was Captain Kirk, who she didn't know who that was. That's not comparable to Amber Heard at all. She wasn't the lead in a Star Trek or any franchise at all.
in a movie like
Well,
this.
That smile, though.
I wish she would have asked what her name is in Aquaman.
That would have if she knew it was Mira. Can you name Amber Heard's character in the Aquaman movies?
That would have been a knockout, dude.
I don't know which was his breakout role.
Chris Pine's been an actor. He's been a well-liked actor. He was in both Star Trek.
I know his breakout role, chat. Princess Diaries 2, The Royal Engagement. Oh! Valeria, that's a shout out to Valeria. Princess Diaries is her favorite movie in the world.
In Wonder Woman and
Did a
Star
movie
Trek.
with Denzel Washington?
Pardon?
Did a movie with Denzel Washington?
Unstoppable.
He's had a good career.
Yeah, great career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much longer career than Ms. Hurt. Right?
Yes.
So you got 2 title characters. You got James Kirk, and those are the people that you thought were most representative of Ms. Hurt.
Those are the actors I chose, yes.
When you say comparable, every one of the actors you chose had a much longer TV career than Ms. Hurt.
Again, they were all in superhero or
Oh my
franchise
God.
movies that
What a
did very, very
stretch.
well at the box office.
So therefore,
And there
they're
are
connected.
tons of actors-
Amber Heard should have as much of a career, Lewis, as these people who've worked harder, longer, and had some luck. Let's be clear, much more talented, had some luck in the industry, which everyone in the industry requires a little bit of luck and talent. And who you know, right? And are you good to work with? Are you easy to work with? There's a lot of factors as to how you become a movie star, right? Because if Hollywood doesn't like you, they're not going to keep you a movie star. I remember there was what's that guy's name? Joel Edgerton. No, it's not Joel Edgerton. He plays Boomerang in Suicide Squad. Captain Boomerang. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh.
Jai Courtney.
That's it.
Jai Courtney. I couldn't figure out, I'm like, why is this guy a thing? Why is he in so many movies? Same thing with Ryan Reynolds. And I learned it's because they're very nice. They're easy to work with, and people want to work with nice guys in Hollywood who will work hard. And those were just two examples that I heard from experienced people working with them. That's why they kept getting gigs. So that's another reason why you keep getting shots at bat.
Well, and also, I want to add that people are mostly there for the superhero title, like the character. For example, Robert Downey Jr., great actor, great Iron Man, but outside of that, his box office drops. Same thing with Tom Holland, right? Spider-Man. If he's Spider-Man, $1 billion. If he's not Spider-Man, not $1 billion. So
Uncharted did pretty well, so Tom Holland still got some time. But yeah, no, you're correct. The what's it called? Chaos Walking. He's done a few that did not do as well. You're spot on. But you're right. Having the superhero movie definitely makes a difference. But this woman's just trying to tell the jury, oh no, Hollywood works. She's all these other. She should have been like these other names that maybe you heard of.
And actresses who are in superhero movies that don't have meteoric rises thereafter, correct?
Not when they're the lead character with Jason Momoa.
Who
have you talked?
Oh
to
well,
Walter
being a
Momoa?
lead character, Jason Momoa makes all the difference, Lewis.
No.
Who is he?
He's a senior executive at Warner Brothers.
Have you talked to Walter Hamada? This is really what I want to talk to Lewis, because Walter Hamada abso-fucking-lutely would know what happened with Amber Heard on that set.
Do you know whether he's the president of DC-based film production?
I think that's exactly his title, yeah.
Yeah, you think? Oh, you know. She knows. I think I know. Maybe.
She doesn't want to get into
She
the
doesn't
trap.
want to. She wants to downgrade Hamada's statements here.
Who's in a better position to determine whether Warner Brothers would renegotiate, you or Mr. Hamada?
So I base my information on them. So the connection should be Mr. Hamada or the agents, not Mr. Hamada and me.
Now, I don't like this woman, so let me be clear. I don't like this woman, but I have to give this woman respect because she's doing what she's paid for. That she, unlike the other two witnesses on the stand, she is holding her ground. She is doing it. She's defending Amber and the team. She's completely biased, which I hope the jury can notice. But to her credit, she's not losing it. She's doing very, very good switching as to like, well, I wouldn't know. The agents told me the information, so you'd have to talk to them. She's doing everything she can to deny and ignore and deflect without seeming like she's not still the expert. So like it or not, she's doing a far better job than others, but it's not working to me because I don't know if the jury's going to buy this or know the movie knowledge like Lewis and I know, or even Steph, Kim, I'm sure Ann, all of us know some of the things she doesn't know here. It's insane.
Did you understand that Mr. Hamada said that nothing Mr. Depp did impacted her compensation?
I don't remember that part of the testimony.
You don't know
How
whether
convenient.
Mr. Hamada testified. Did anything Mr. Depp said about Amber Heard affect her compensation?
Again, I don't
remember. Do you know whether Mr. Hamada indicated whether he even knew who Adam Waldman was?
Again, I don't remember the conversation about Hamada and Waldman. In my experience, studios don't talk about how or why
Look
they
at this.
make decisions based on publicity or
Look at that.
conversation.
Unless you can get it.
So she just said something, and mark my guys. Andy
Coming
Damas
back.
here. Mark my words. Elaine just got her next light bulb thought. Oh, good one. Good one. Kathryn, let me write that one down because I needed to figure out a way to devalue Hamada when they're going to play it next in a couple days, which they're gonna.
Adam Waldman was?
Again, I don't remember the conversation about Hamada and Waldman. In my experience, studios don't talk about how or why they make decisions based on publicity or conversation.
Unless you can get him to testify under oath at a deposition, right?
Well, even so, they're not going to say anything negative.
Mr. Hamada is in the best position to determine whether there were chemistry issues with Miss Heard.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
He's the president of the company.
Overruled.
I don't know how involved Mr. Hamada was on a daily basis in terms of chemistry.
She went in before and took the test. Then she made a movie. Then there was an existing movie under which Warner Brothers could then decide whether there was chemistry, right?
The movie worked. It made over $1 billion, and they're
Doesn't matter.
all over the poster.
Stop.
You know there were
there,
multiple
Andy. Stop
posters
right there,
for
Andy.
that
Hold on,
documentary.
5 seconds.
Yes.
And that 3 out of the 4 posters didn't even feature Miss Heard.
More than
Correct.
that.
More. There's why I looked it up. There's one
I
poster. I'll
send
go
you a
ahead,
link
Lewis.
if you want to show that. Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
So when you guys go to a movie on the opening night and you pay the $30, $40 or whatever, scroll down a little bit for that, and the movie sucks, could you get your money back? No. So they watched the movie. Everyone wants to see Aquaman. Jason Momoa was doing his PR stuff. He was excellent. He was doing the haka everywhere. He was awesome. Very positive for DC. They saw her in it. They were like, what the hell? She sucks. So they moved. They're improving it as they go. So they may have taken her out, you know? But, you know, these people are trying to pretend that doesn't happen.
Bravo. So I was looking for this. So these are all the official posters for Aquaman. And I remember this one. I remember a couple of them here. I never, ever saw this one. This is the one where they're like, she's standing strong. The audience wants to see her story connected because she's the love interest. Bullshit.
I'll tell
Bullshit.
you why you never saw that one.
Why?
Because there's one sheets that are actually created, and there's internet posters. This is an internet poster, not as important to the studios as the one sheets.
So it's one they put on like audio, or probably internet ads or something around the
internet ads and stuff like that. And there's much better ones. And
yeah, I mean, I remember this one just because I've seen it because I've pulled some of this from the thread. There was a Princess Mara poster, to be fair, but there was also a King Orm poster who this Hollywood didn't even know who Patrick Wilson was, who's a really great actor, guys. And he plays King Orm in the fucking movie. He's in the next movie, and she had no idea.
Insidious too.
She had no idea who he was. What kind of expert? You had a Black Manta poster, King. Oh, that's Dolph Lundgren's character. Dolph Lundgren's character had
His
a freaking
career
poster.
didn't go anywhere after that.
Nicole Kidman had a poster. Willem Dafoe had a poster. Complete nonsense and spin. These are the posters. She was on 2 on her own. Oh, sorry, and there was a group one. She's on the group one, and I guess this is, I don't know what characters these are, but yeah, that's an international poster, and yeah, there we go. So all this Hollywood just completely spinning like Hollywood does to try and justify it. So we got that one. There's one more. So I want to get through now. We can keep going off on Hollywood, but it's important we also address this Adam Waldman issue because she's out there also trying to say that all of the things that Adam Waldman said, the 3 statements, are why Amber was trending negatively.
The mere fact that there were activities after the Waldman statements doesn't establish that the Waldman statements caused any damages, does it?
When you look at the time frame of when the Waldman statements came out and you look at what was going on with Ms. Heard's career prior to the statements and what happened after the statements, it's very clear to make that correlation that they were caused by those statements and the campaign that followed afterwards in terms of the negative social media.
I'm trying to understand where you put the link between the Waldman statements and all the other activity that occurred since then.
Which includes the release of the audio tape, which I don't know why they didn't say that. The release of the audio tape is why things were trending, not Adam Waldman.
As I stated and very clearly wanted to make sure that everybody understood was that it was a time frame between which the Waldman statements were made and the negative decline in her career started happening. And in discussions with her agents and her publicists, there was a very tight timeline and a very close link to when those statements came out and when everything started pulling away from Ms. Heard.
You have no idea whether Mr. Waldman's statements caused any damage to Ms. Heard, do you?
Well, actually, both the words in the statements were used as hashtags in the campaign, as well as when the statistical and the investigative analysis was done on the social media campaign. It turned out that 1 in 4 of the statements had Waldman or Waldminian in them. So that was another connection that I was able to make between the defamatory statements and the negativity that the studios and the product endorsements and the television and the press connected as well.
Now I wish Wayne had been able to do what I'm about to do. I wonder where those came from, guys. Where did Waldminians come from? Oh, right. Those came from Amber Heard.
Wow.
Amber Heard is the one who tweeted that. I'll let the Waldminians take over from here to real Amber Heard and Eve Barlow. It was her herself that started hashtag Waldminians, which now they're trying to say was Amber's doing. Insanely frustrating because again, the spin here saying that, oh no, it was Adam Waldman that did it. No, Amber egged it on social media, and now Adam and Johnny are being at fault because Adam made a statement that was true, saying that it's a hoax, which he has many people who have come forward to say she didn't want she didn't have the bruises, and that's what this whole trial is trying to figure out. But again, it's just maddening to see the level of corruption and lies that they will resort to keep this going.
All right, let's start with first principles. If they're true, they're not defamatory, correct?
Again, that's outside the scope of my expertise.
Very good answer.
He didn't look at hashtags that contained the Waldman statement words. He looked at justice for Johnny Depp, right?
That's one of them, yes?
One of them, of the 1.2 million hits that you talked about, that was 900,000, 984,000.
Well, also in my conversations with Mr. Schnell, we talked about all of the words that were in the statement that also appeared. So what he wrote in his report and what I had in my conversation may not have been the same thing.
Ma'am, I don't want to hear about conversation with Mr. Schnell.
It's part of what I relied on, and I'm allowed to talk about that.
All right, so your conversation with Mr. Schnell, let's move beyond that. Let's talk about what the other hashtags were. Amber Heard is an abuser. That's not in the Waldman statement, is it?
The fact that she was called a hoax can be related to Amber Heard as the abuser, but no, those words were not used.
How can that be related, you liar?
And we just don't like Amber. That's not in the Waldman
Here it comes,
statement.
here it comes.
Correct.
And Amber Turd is not in the Waldman statement. Right. None of those things are. And in terms of the use of the words fraud and hoax, that appeared in only 6.5% of the millions of tweets that Mr. Schnell analyzed, right?
I don't have his definition or his report in front of me, but we can look at it together if you'd like to.
That's your only evidence, however, that any of this activity has any link to Mr. Waldman. Is that correct?
Well, no, we also look at the timeline because those campaigns were not active prior to the Waldman statements, and then they started appearing, so there's some connectivity there as well.
I'm just looking for all evidence of the causal connection that you claim exists between the $45 million in damages that you assert and the 3 statements made by Mr. Waldman.
Well, I also looked at Ms. Heard's career after the divorce proceedings and other lawsuits that she was either involved with or was discussed. And her career might have had a pause, but she was able to overcome that when she did Aquaman and she did The Stand, both very prominent productions. And there was no dramatic downturn in her career, was moving forward, and even she had been able to overcome the negative publicity surrounding the divorce or the initial filing of the UK lawsuit and the other lawsuits, anything that she was associated. She overcame that. She did Justice League, and she did Aquaman, and she did The Stand, and she got the L'Oreal contract all after that. The only time her career slowed down and stopped was at the same time that those defamatory statements came out.
There was enormous amounts of negative activity around Ms. Heard as a result of the UK case. Isn't that true?
There was negativity, yes, around both of them in the case, yes.
Right. Substantial amounts of negativity.
Right.
Right? So you can't tell me that that negativity isn't the thing that keeps your or Ms. Heard from working. And you can't distinguish between the UK bad publicity and the bad publicity that derived after the Waldman statements. And you cannot put a causal connection between that activity and what Mr. Waldman said.
It can be the instigating event, if you want me to call it that. We'll call the Waldman statements the instigating event of a torrential rain of social media tactics that has gone on for years. Yeah.
The instigating event, and therefore your damage analysis with some degree, I guess, of reasonable certainty is that once there's an instigating event, everything that happens thereafter is fair game for damages?
Well, it's like a fire. If one tree burns and then more air or wind is added to it, then the next tree burns and the whole forest burns. But if that first fire hadn't started with the one tree, there would have been no loss of acreage. So you can look at it with that same analogy.
You know, it was reported. Yes.
Yeah, it certainly has been discussed. We don't have any proof or video of anybody defecating on the bed.
I certainly do not have proof video of anybody defecating in the bed. I'll give you that.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, but they bring up the fact that why wouldn't the defecating on the bed be that incident that caused all this stuff? So I want to talk about that with you guys because it doesn't make any sense that she's hand picking these 3 statements by Adam Waldman. I don't even remember seeing them. I remember the audio tape. I remember the accusations that came out. That's what made people trend. Not these stupid Adam Waldman statements. The fact that they're trying to spin it to say that those three things were the cause, when in reality, she's the one who made it trend with the and coined the Waldminions. I'm just floored that they didn't point this out yet to prove that Amber actually coined it. But I guess they'll say, yeah, well, in response to it's therefore wouldn't happen if he. I don't know. Yeah. But it's frustrating. So now beyond just the Hollywood part of it, she's now clearly not an expert in Hollywood. She's a mouthpiece for Amber. I think worse than ones we've seen. She does a little better, more confidently. But it's entirely frustrating to watch, and it's just scary that the jury may not understand the bias or see it or know the reality here, and it worries me. I got to be honest, it worries me a bit. Guys, that was an amazing show. We hung out for almost, 3 hours, over 3 hours long. That was insane. We had so much fun talking to everybody, reading some chats, getting more insight and clips from the trial. If you missed the full unedited stream, do me a favor, hit the join button, become a member today, select a tier, hit join. You'll be not only supporting the channel, but you'll also be able to get all the members only replays and exclusive videos that I'm posting more of. So I hope you'll join this Popcorn Planet community. Appreciate all you guys. Make sure to support all our guests. We had Christopher Melcher here earlier, and silvers.com. You can go check her out, buy her book, as well as Louis Leck over on Nerd Report, which we're going to raid next. If you're watching live, don't go anywhere. We're going to push you right over there. But also the lovely ladies. Thanks again for Ladies Night on Friday. You guys crushed it. That was amazing. Thanks for helping out. Steph the Alter Nerd. It's Kim. Anything else you guys want to add?
Thanks for coming. Thanks for helping and subscribing to Andy and supporting him. Thanks for helping and subscribing to It's Kim. Thanks for helping and subscribing to me. Little bit of a bias note here. Help me beat Lewis. I need more subscribers than him. I want to be able to say na 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 to Lewis. So if you haven't done so already and you love what's come out of my gob, because I keep it 100, I keep it real, then make sure you come over to my channel, because you'll definitely get more of it.
Well said, and go check out It's Kim as well. And if you want to check out Lewis, we're taking you there right now. Don't touch your dial. We're going to redirect you. It's going to happen automatically with live viewers. Here it comes. In the meanwhile, if you're watching the replay, check out these videos. Hit subscribe. We'll be back live tomorrow with more coverage, including who's on Johnny's witness list.